Hello and welcome to Web of Light, where here at Web of Light we weave a web of light in the world. As many of you know, there's been shifts and changes in Web of Light, but we are still here to serve you and your movement forward on your own personal and spiritual path. If you've just joined our Web of Light family, because we have Web of Light family from Maine to California, Florida, and back, please let us know by sending an email to drkevin@weboflight.com and let us know you've joined our family, and we will welcome you here on air. Plus, take any questions or ideas you may have for shows you'd like to see us do. For those of you who have been following us the last couple of years, you know that recently my co-host Angie D'Anjou needed to step away for a bit, and we've been doing co-hosts, monthly co-hosts that have been inadequately filling Angie's shoes, of course. But today we have a surprise for you, which is we're doing the Numerology and Astrology for 2018. We have dragged Angie out of her seclusion, teamed her up with our Web of Light astrologer, Dorothy Morgan, and over the next two shows, you're going to hear the astrology and the numerology for 2018. As always, remember, this is not information to give your power to, but information with which you can make better decisions. When we know what the energies and the stars and the skies and the numbers are, we can work with it instead of against it. Here at Web of Light, we'd like to continue to offer you tools for your own growth. And I've got a couple of pretty impressive tools sitting right here to my left. Ladies, welcome.
Hello, we're a tool, huh?
Yeah.
Well, when you say it that way. A skill set? No,
Yes.
you know, we talk about tools in our tool belt.
That's right. That's
Right?
right.
Yes.
And you have the astrology tool mastered. You have the numerology tool mastered.
Well, I think, who knows?
Yeah.
You can always learn more.
Yes.
Well,
Never ending.
yes.
Never
I think
it
in both
is.
astrology and numerology.
Yeah. Yep.
Every time you turn around, you're seeing something else that you hadn't filtered through.
Yep.
Well, and I think that with all of the tools, the more that you use them, the better craftsman you become. So you realize there are things they could do that you could never thought of before.
Right.
Or a perspective or an angle or, you know, and so we have tools and we have experience and wisdom.
Okay.
How does that work?
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
Okay.
Well, I know in astrology, and not knowing about, I don't know the field of numerology. I mean, of course, I know what it is and the basic pieces of it, but in astrology, there is specialties. I mean, you learn the basics, and then you can be an expert at answering questions, yes or no. It's called horary astrology. You can be a specialist at medical, financial, all kinds of different specialties on just Venus cycles. Is numerology like that?
Numerology can have its specialties because you can either look at a numerological chart to get somebody's energy and see what they're going to be, or other people utilize, there's numerologists that actually just go and see how a name would change. Like if I change the initial in my middle name, how is that going to affect me? Those types of things.
Ramona Garcia told me about that. When I first reading I ever had was with her, and she said, well, if you do use your name this way, it has there's more power
potential.
to it. There's more potential. It's like 11-2 or something shows up or something.
Yes.
So it's good. I loved it. I loved it.
It's kind of funny because I'm going to bring you into this because I was doing numerology on Dr. Kevin, and I come to realize that if you just use Dr. Kevin, it brings you the same energy that you have with your full name, Kevin Ross Emery.
Oh my.
But if you do Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, don't use it.
Don't do that one. Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's rather interesting to see those little pieces come out.
Vibrations.
Yeah.
And intuitively, I always go by Dr. Kevin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just call me Dr. Kevin. That's what it is. That's the branding. It's Dr. Kevin. That's my business card. So, now sometimes in numerology, you end up with the same number, but the number has a higher vibration because it's the next cycle. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly.
Numerology, there's so many vibrations to, we are individuals. So if there's, let's say, 3 people in a room that were all born on June 7, 1956. That was my birth date. I'll go with that. But if there's 3 individuals out of all of those and they're all born on that same birth date, we don't go by, like with, I know in astrology they go by the time of birth. We don't go by time of birth. We go by the numbers that are consistent with the name, what numbers are missing out of the name, what numbers are frequented in the name. So it's not just the birth date, it's all those other little pieces that create that difference.
Sweet. So
there's a lot.
So Angie, comparing it to astrology, that's like, okay, so people born on June 7th, they're all Geminis.
Yes.
But everybody, even if it's born at the same, so the difference there is like, okay, so what time of day were they born? And that time of day is the Earth spinning, and so that puts planets in different places, puts one of the important angles, which is the horizon in a chart. People have heard it called the ascendant, the horizon, and that gives us that's our first, the front door of the personality. That's what people see first before they get to know you. So just like what you do your math and you figure out this number, that number, then based on their name, not just the day they're born. And we do the same thing with the ascendant. So knowing what time someone's born, it gives all of us born on the exact same day different characteristics.
Because you take all of those planetary spots that they're in. Just like,
You know what? Something just clicked. I love this. This is what this is a great show already. I have a number of people, and one of them is a good friend, and she's a twin. And I do plenty of twin charts. That could be why they have the vibrations just a little bit different, even when they're just 3 minutes apart.
3 minutes apart.
Because of the name.
Yeah.
Never thought of it. Oh my God. Oh my God.
See?
Oh
That's what
Light
we love
bulb,
here.
I have never once thought of that before.
And in honesty, with numerology, that same person, of course, their astrological chart and that part also plays a part, because they will tell you, and I'll tell you, everything I do with numerology, it's research. On any particular person, it's all research, because I'm not just taking it from here. I'm taking a little bit of the intuitive and adding it into all the compiled pieces that I get from all kinds of sources.
Wow.
So, but those pieces will actually say to you, this person with this much of that potential is actually, a strong Gemini, or, had a certain planet. They'll actually say what planets were involved with them.
Good.
Sometimes we can actually depict from it what planet were in their sun signs and that kind of stuff. There's information too. So it's rather interesting.
Well, a lot of times our intuitive just points our intellect where to go.
Correct.
Yes.
So we'll ask a question we never would have thought to ask before. And so we'll look behind a corner we never thought to look. And so when you can put your intuitive there and say, yes, I'm an astrologer and I'm a numerologist, but I'm also an intuitive, so it gives me that, that I kind of look, and I don't look at it as a strictly analytical, it's just all numbers, and you could put it into a computer and the computer is going to tell you. And I think that astrology and numerology sometimes suffer a little bit of the same fate. Astrology is probably wider in its abuse around this area than numerology, thanks to the daily astrology columns that we see, but that people want to make it simple. Oh, well, I can just add the numbers in, and I can go to a numerology book, and I'm a 4, and so that's what it means. And there's so much more to it.
Oh, much more.
And there's so much more to
Just like
astrology than
there's
I'm
so
a
much
Gemini.
more to being a Gemini than,
Yeah.
yeah.
The depth is, it's like an iceberg,
You could keep going.
Can't even see the depth of these practices, they're just science, you can't really say they're science, but maybe, who knows, it's an argument.
I mean,
Have either one of you ever read, and I know we want to get on into the year, but I'm curious, have either one of you read either the astrology or the numerology for dummies books they have?
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
They have some good pieces in it.
They have some good
They do.
pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
one for astrology actually is really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good for
I've been
beginners
happy.
to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a good place to start. Are they clear in that book? This is the start of a lifetime study, or do they try to present it as a fait accompli?
No.
No,
No.
they,
Not at
they-
all.
No.
not at all.
Very clear. Good.
Very
Yeah.
clear. To me,
I've
to
never
me,
read them. I'm
yeah,
asking.
they're good. They're
Yeah.
so plain English.
They have a lot of good pointers that they bring into each of the different
Yeah.
categories, so to
Yep.
speak.
Yep, they do that for both. Absolutely.
So I'm going to start with the numerology for 2018. And the first thing is, because, where Dorothy is on every month talking about astrology, I think a lot of people have a better understanding that she's got her book and her ephemeris and the movings.
Yes, I have it with me still, even though.
What were, can you just take a couple of minutes, Angie, and tell us what was the process to figure out the number for 2008, for the numerology for the year? What were the numbers involved?
So I could sit there and I could tell you that it was so simple because all I had to do was take 2018 and add it 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus 8.
I suspect there was more to it than that.
But yeah, once you get that factor, once you get that number, then it's the research. And you're not wanting to look at just one particular research. You want to look at many sources
Okay.
because it just is constant. There's sources everywhere on numerology.
Okay.
And you have to really look at it and have that, again, the intuition goes into that and says, what parts of this really resonate with what I should be writing and what I should be bringing into the picture. Okay?
Okay.
So in reality, if I added 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus 8, I come up
11.
with the number 11.
Yeah.
And so an 11, we never bring down to the number of 2, because usually we would go 1 plus 1 is 2. But an 11 is a master number, what they call master numbers, which means they have a higher consistency with things that go on.
Is it
And
because
so
it's a double
pattern.
number?
Yeah, it's the double. So it's 11-2. So now it's an 11-2 energy. And so therefore the 2018 comes in 11-2. Not every 2 year comes out as an 11, though. There are some 2 years that will have a total of 20, and they'll come into the 2, okay? So the only, right now, the only 11 year, okay, other than 2018, is 2009, and what was the other one, 1904, 9.
Oh, wow.
It was like 1909. It's like way back there. It's not always there, in other words. I'm trying to get the
1901.
number, 1901.
It'd be 1901.
Yeah.
10, 11. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
an 11. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's not many out there that have that 11 energy. So when the 11 comes around, usually you see some dynamic change.
Interesting.
And it's
So-
not change, it's dynamic change in communication and how we work with communication to the effect and how we work with relationships.
So that's what an 11-2 means, is like how we work in relationships?
Relationships, how we work with our communication level, how we work with contracts that we might have at hand. Okay? And it's the 11-2 right now, I'll say the 2018, it's a very creative year, but it's also a year of bringing everybody together. And the way you bring everybody together in the 11 energy is to bring in all of the disgruntles. And then everybody has to sit at the round table and say, how are we going to fix this? How are we going to collaborate with each other so that we can become a universe that is more responsible for each other? Because the 11 energy is also what we call the Shambhala energy. And Shambhala is the energy of divine peace and love, unconditional love. So this is the year. It's either you do it, it's a cut and dry. People are, and you know, it's like it's not that cut and dry, because when you get into the 11 year in numerology, you're going to have a lot of confrontations. You may have a lot of struggles with different people voicing their opinions, sometimes some protest, world leaders going back and forth with each other in regards to different things that pertain to the entire universe, not just to their country, but starting to look at the whole. So
Interesting.
it's, and neighborhoods, environmental, everything. Everyone's going to start working. But in order to get them to work together, it has to be a blunt happening.
You said an interesting phrase that I want to comment on, which was that you have to get all the disgruntles out and get them around the table.
Yeah.
So I look at the last 18 to 24 months as a time that has been the rise of the disgruntled, that we've been watching, you know, more conversations happening, and hostilely so at times, but that it seems like conversations have moved into a new level.
So keep in mind that in your 2017 energy, we were in the one energy,
Okay?
which is the renewal, the birth of the beginning of what do we want to see as the future unfolds. Where
Okay.
do we want to take this plate? So in that one energy, generally usually about, I'd say September, October, this new energy that's coming into play starts to get mingled in.
Okay.
So
that's
from the previous year.
Yeah. So the
So,
previous
okay.
year to this. So now we're going into 2018, but this energy was already starting to mingle into the one energy because it's starting to probably back in as early as September because it kind of mingles.
Fair.
Then it's going to come to the cusp.
Yep. And Dorothy wants to comment. She's over here. She's
We're going to talk. That's Aquarius. That's the Aquarius energy. And remember the Great American Eclipse on August 21st? We had an eclipse in Aquarius, and we have the Leo Aquarius energy also August 7th. August 7th was the moon was in Leo. The moon was in Aquarius and the sun was in Leo. And then August 21st, it was all in Leo. But right now, this year, 2018 now, we have the first eclipse we have of the year, because we have 4, 5, sometimes 6 eclipses every year. It's not rare. The rare occurrence in 2017 was, of course, we could see it. We don't see eclipses very often. But the eclipse on January 31st is, here we are, is in Leo, and it matches the eclipse that we had on August 7th. And then we have an eclipse coming up on February 15th, and that eclipse is at 27 Aquarius, which also matches the eclipse from opposite, but matches the eclipse from August 21st. So eclipses have 6-month cycles. There's a name for it. I won't get the technical piece, but they have so what you're talking about in this Aquarian change and this people coming together and being creative. The creative sign, if you're going to really just like isolate zodiac signs, Leo is creativity, Aquarius is the masses. It's about changing things for the people, being creative and making humanitarian changes. And this is the cycle that we're in. Eclipses have an 18 and a half, 19-year cycle approximately. So we haven't had these cycles for that long, but they started last year. And so they'll go into this year again, 6 months, and then we have a little bit early into next year, and then they shift into the previous cycle because eclipses go backwards through the zodiac belt. So anyways, that is what's matching your 11 too. Because what I'm doing is when you're talking to me, because we didn't plan this ahead.
No.
We did nothing ahead of time, but we're professionals, we can do it.
Yeah.
It's just listening to keywords. This is how I use when I work with clients too. It's like we have to have a conversation because you're going to tell me what's going on and what you're feeling.
Right.
I'm hearing keywords that are helping me to hone in on what is really happening. And so that's what I've done. And then when you talk about that unconditional love, I mean, that really is, we don't think of Aquarius as love, but the opposite energy of Leo is love. And Aquarius sees that bigger picture. So in some ways that can represent unconditional love. It's more Pisces, but still, Aquarius is the sign right before Pisces.
Yeah.
So it gives us that whole vibe, and that's what we have going on January and February. Those are the big things.
Well, I think it's interesting because when you look at the fact that the Aquarian nature is the nature of serving humanity,
Yes.
trying to serve humanity on a larger scale.
Absolutely.
I think that one can only do that from a place of unconditional love.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yes.
so I completely get, I would actually call Pisces more like unconditional acceptance,
Good point.
because
Yeah.
they have all the compassion. But we have Aquarius there that says, I'm going to give you unconditional, I'm going to give you divine love,
Yeah.
which means I may be kicking your butt all the way across, but it was for your best interest.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
what's going on with the numerological energies. And we talk about unconditional love, but one of the things that a lot of people don't get the concept of is before we can offer unconditional love to anything that surrounds us, we have to unconditionally love ourselves.
And these eclipses that have been going on between the Leo and Aquarius energy, we have to do that. We have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
That is one of the biggest themes that all humans have. But we really do have to recognize the individual, because that's one of the downfalls of Aquarian energy, is when we're looking at what the bigger picture is. The problem is like sometimes we forget that there are individuals that make the group. That's one of the little bit of, every zodiac sign has a dysfunction, and that's a piece of the Aquarian dysfunction. Don't forget about the individual, yourself first.
Yes.
And the planet that rules Leo is
The sun.
the sun. For us here on the third rock in, we are the sun is the center of the universe as far as we're concerned.
That's right.
Okay, and so the I and the we,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
Aquarius is ruled by
Uranus.
Uranus, which is not quite the furthest planet out,
No.
but it's
It's
getting
not
real
bad.
close. So it's the I
Yeah.
and the we.
And he's quirky too, because his rings don't go around. He's tipped upward too, so that's why he has a the knowledge of being just different and unique, and because even his orbit's a little different than the rest. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's a unique way of addressing things.
So we've got a little bit of an overview of 2018. We are going to spend the rest of this show talking about the first 6 months of 2018 in a little bit more detail from a month-to-month basis. Before we do that, I want to see if there is an overview statement for 2018 that you'd like to give us, Dorothy.
There is.
But this show will continue in a part 2 that will then be the last 6 months of the year, because we've decided there's just way too much good information for us to try to curtail it.
Yeah.
So give us your overview statement for 2018, and then we're going to hop back and we're going to pick on Angie for January.
All right. So when we have, let's see, there is a lot astrologically this year. It's like, I won't swear, kicking butt. How's that? It's a lot. So the first thing that happened, it happened in the end of 2017, was when Saturn moved into a new zodiac sign. Now, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto are the outer planets. When the outer planets move into new zodiac signs, it is significant. So Saturn is the closest outer planet. Every 3 years, approximately 2.5 to 3 years, it changes signs. It did that on the winter solstice. And so for the next 3 years until December 20, 18, 19, 20, 21. I got that in my head. So till December 2021, it will be in Capricorn. That is about structure. Saturn in Capricorn is its own zodiac sign. It is happy here. So where the first year, this whole year, it will only move 9 degrees, which is out of 30, which is typical. It goes all the way to 9, back to 2, up to 9. So it's going to be all the outer planets retrograde every single year. It is about restructuring life, everything. The whole, it really is. And it doesn't mean everything is going to fall apart. It just means those things in your life, and even as a whole, as a nation, the things that do not have a solid foundation will start to crumble. So we're able to see what's left. We're able to see what's important, what works, what am I building from? You know, it's just like that empty hole in the ground, and they've just poured the foundation. You know, and that is the piece, the overall, one of the bigger overall themes of the year. And we'll get into a little bit at a time, but mainly that Capricorn, that Saturn in Capricorn is just so important that we recognize that we're restructuring things, and it goes nice and slow. You know, where you feel you're weak or where things have fallen apart. I'm working it in my body. I have some spine stuff going on. So I've had to now figure out how I'm going to put into a routine strength training, exercising every day for the rest of my life. I'm not kidding. You can't slack now. Saturn in Capricorn says work, work, work. So we will. And if you're not somebody who likes work, then it will feel a little difficult for you. If you're not somebody who knows how to just work and just do what you have to do. Don't slack. That's what this year is about in the big, broad picture.
So what does it mean to us recovering workaholics that we're trying to like have life balance?
Find that balance. It does. I know. Kat, I work from home. I mean, my living room is my office. It's like I don't ever get a break from my job. I don't. Even when it's 10 at night, it's like, well, I'll just go check one email so I don't have to do it in the morning. You know, it's like.
We have a cure for that.
Yeah?
It's called a man. A reason to turn the computer off.
Oh, that would be great. Well, little Kevin's got a cold. If you haven't been able to tell yet.
Yeah.
And now another thing that happens, and it'll be in May. I'll talk about it when we get to May. There's another big shift from Uranus moves into a new zodiac sign, but that's in May, and we'll talk about it when we get to May.
So you've both given us an overview. You're talking about new structure.
Yes.
Creating new structure, and of course, if people know where Saturn and Capricorn is hanging out in their charts, it would give you definitely more value.
Yes.
Numerologically, you said that it is a 11-2 year. What was my number? Do you remember?
Your number?
Yeah.
You're 22-4.
Okay, so I'm a 22-4. Now, is that my birth number, or is that just my number this year?
That's your personal number this year.
Personal number this year, okay. So so each year we get a different personal number? Okay. Now, do we have a base number? The number
Oh, yes, we do. We have a
Okay.
base number that we're born with.
Okay.
But again, that base number is just the little tiny
Yep, that you
splinter.
build off of.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm trying to remember what your 9.
9.
Yours was a 9.
9.
Yeah.
So people out there that know that the
I have to do a little math there
that
for a
the
minute.
numerology is a 9.
Yeah.
9 in the numerology 9, like and you have to remember this is like just that little piece off the top. But 9s always have to get things completed. If they don't get things completed, then they get a little bit all like frustrated because they don't want to start something new until they get it all together.
Okay.
They also have a tendency of and it's funny because I could say this, but it's like they'll be the nitpickers on everybody to some extent, because if you're not doing it the right way, they want to get it done the right way. Which she and I could agree.
I'm a
part of
5.
his
I know I'm a
energy.
5, but this year I'm in a 9 year. I'm in a 9 year
Yeah.
now, personally.
Okay.
Cool.
But you know that,
Yeah.
but there's so much more to that picture, just as there's so much
Yeah.
more to the year
No, I know.
because
So,
of all the different parts of that.
but if so, like astrology, if somebody comes and gets the numerological chart with you done, they need it really updated every year to find out what their number is in the year. Like
Yes.
people need their solar returns to find out where their planets have gone.
Yes, I'll have people that'll come to me and I'll do a five-year forecast with them instead of them coming every year.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, you
Too
know,
much for
but
me. That's way
again,
too much work for
that's a lot of time consumption to do
Yep.
that. But it gives them, and that's
Yes.
why it's not the, it's not going to cost you a 2-cent piece.
Oh, wow.
You know,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
like massive. You're spending at least
Yeah.
boom on this. But yes, so every single person, you have to remember when you're in these years, the universal year is its own energy, but each person is in their own energy for that universal year.
Yep.
So
And
they're
so
going to respond differently.
they're
Yeah.
responding differently to that energy because each one is like, let's say, right now your energy is in the 22-4, which means that's the creative energy, but it's maxed out. It's like I have to have an integrity, and I'm going to move forward if I keep my integrity. And there's much more to that, but if I keep my integrity and I become very creative this year, what can I open up? And it's not just opening up for yourself, it's opening up to say, I wouldn't be surprised that by the end of this year with your numerological point, you won't be more than just the instructor. You'll find more and more things that are more complex that help the universe or help large groups and communities.
Okay.
So I see you in a lot more community effort. And so therefore, that's that energy.
Yep.
Okay, I'm in a 6, which is a motivational energy. And so I will be motivating more people, or I'll be motivating myself to get more answers.
So I just had an image of you in a cheerleader
Yeah.
outfit with pom-poms.
But
yeah.
you said
Yeah, I'm
you
a
said
9.
you were in a 5 energy, so she's going to be looking for a lot of
No, I am
9.
a 5.
You said
I'm
you're
in a 9.
9.
Yeah, I'm in a
So
9.
she's in a 9 energy, so she's going to be looking to complete a lot of projects, make sure that things are nestled in for herself so that she can start new. She's going to have new adventures this coming after
Yeah.
this year goes by.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that Saturn in Capricorn
Yeah.
is really
So,
strong.
everybody has their own part to play, in other
Yeah.
words. We're going to touch humanity. Each of us will touch humanity this year. Every single person on this planet.
And of the three of us,
However,
which
it'll
one
be
of
different ways that we
Yeah.
touch it.
and of the three of us, which one are most likely to slap humanity this year?
You. We don't have it. You will be, actually.
Okay. So tell us about the first quarter. Can you tell us about like January,
Yeah,
February,
I'm gonna
March,
go in,
numerologically, and then
Yeah.
we'll move into the astrology.
So I want to go back to one more thing, though, because it really, you were saying 2021. And as she was saying that, of course, I'm doing my numerological, what's going on with the next few
Yeah.
years here with the universe. And when we go into this 11-2, the next thing is 3, 4, 5. So it goes in chronological order. Thing is that after 2021, we go into the 6 energy, and that's when we get the stability of what we put into it for the next.
And that's when Saturn will be in
Yeah.
Aquarius.
So
then.
these are the next 3 years that we're working on to gain that full
Cycles.
stability.
cycles.
So that's
So
why
everything.
she hit me. I was like, oh wow! So I got to share that.
Please make sure, Dorothy, you enunciate, because the audience, I think, just heard you say psychos. As referred.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Go ahead.
I love
So
it.
anyway, actually, January is like a day of you have to free up time. You have to get. It's like a time of like I have to refurbish me. And so the energy of this month in the universal pattern is to find something to play, something to get your mind off of all of the colossals that surround the world. Okay, and that's a big important piece, because as we bring in some celebration, as we bring in some joy, or we have some happiness or giddiness, we're getting ourselves prepared, because we're going to have to buckle down, and this is going to be a really working year. So this is it right now. Release, relax, get yourself into control. That's what January's energy is all about around us. But as we go into February, boom, put the seatbelts on and let's go. We're going for the travel. Okay, there's a lot of creativity that needs to be done. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to be brought up. Old beliefs, old opinions are going to start getting punctured, so to speak. So if there's anything around you that you've been holding back on, or you've been sitting there and having this negative vibe on, that's it. February is going to start opening that up, so that we can start seeing the potential of everyone that surrounds us, not just ourselves.
Okay.
And so then we move into March. March, I see that there's going to be a lot. I feel there's going to be like demonstrations. There's going to be something that's going to really evoke people to go out into the streets, or start speaking their truth more so than ever. I don't know what that might be, but it's like all these voices, all these things that have been raising up for like even since 2017, is finally going to hit like a plateau sometime in March. That's what the feeling is, because we're going into that, okay, let's start changing some of this. Let's start getting the ball rolling, okay? However, it's a 6-month in April, everybody's going to start having a reason for companionship, a reason for bringing stability back to whatever community they're in, whatever they're doing with their family, whatever the world's doing. So there's going to be some discussions coming up. And I want to say that into April, heavy, really, really heavy door-opening discussions of some sort that are going to not just be for people in general, but the world as we know it.
So in the first quarter, the first 3 months, from a numerological standpoint, we have rest and rejuvenate, get ready, hit the ground running, and start putting your energy towards creating the new world that's coming. And then in March, it's time to start cleaning house.
Yeah.
That's what I hear, cleaning house.
And one of the things when you get into February is taking responsibility.
Okay.
You know, putting that responsibility, getting it going.
Self-responsibility.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where do I fit and what do I have to do?
Okay.
And that's what it's, and again, remember, the what do I have to do is different for everybody.
Yep.
Because it has to depend on what their energy is in.
Me, I, we.
Yes.
I got to take care of me. What am I here to do? And now let's solve the we problems by exposing them and confronting them.
And I'll lead into this with that and reiterate a little more about that Saturn and Capricorn that we talked about earlier, because it hasn't been in that sign since 1988. It was the last time it moved in there. And what's important to understand is, for each of us individually, if you were born by that then, if you can remember, what were you doing in 1988, 87, 88, 89, the years that the last time Saturn moved through Capricorn? Because globally, we talked about this in the Capricorn TV, the show we did, but globally, this is when like the Berlin Wall came down within a year, and you know, walls came down, people were able to come together to build new governments, new structure, things such as that. But on a personal level, you know, this is twice for me. I'll be having a second one now. And it's like, you know, what structure was I creating back then for myself? Was I setting myself up for the career? Is that career still working for me? Am I moving into something different? So where this is going on in our own personal charts varies as to the answer to those questions. But it still is relating to the foundation. And since it's just moved in at the very end of December 2017, January, February, March, all of this time until it goes retrograde later in the year is as we're moving forward and looking at, it's like, oh, we just feel motivated to do things. And then when the planet's retrograde is when we have a time to regroup and get back and just kind of look at maybe, all right, that didn't work so much after all, I'll try this instead. So January, like I already mentioned, we have that first big eclipse. It's the full moon on January 31st. It's a full moon, it's a super moon, it's a blue moon, it's an eclipse. This hasn't happened in 150 years, so January 31st is a big one. It's a big one. It's the sun's in Aquarius, the moon's in Leo. Like I already mentioned, being creative, but how can I be creative? What inspires me so then I can inspire others and do stuff for the world? That answer will be individual, just like our numbers are individual, right? But this is the theme that's sort of running through everyone's lives. And then when we get into February, there's lots of individual things, but these are the big hitters, right? In February 15th, we have that new moon eclipse in the sign of Aquarius. Mercury's right next to it, and it's exalted there. This gives us time and space to think, because that Mercury in Aquarius is that high thinking mind. It is It is progressive. It's like, what can I do? It's like a laser. It's absolute laser thinking. So if you, and it's a new moon, and new moons it's about planting the seed. It's like a number one. It's like it's just something's planted. I can't tell what it is yet. I have some ideas, but we're not sure how it's going to bloom and what it's going to do. So get into that space at the 15th of February to set some new goals for yourself, some really high-end goals, and it gives you opportunities to shoot for certain things, because that's what that Aquarian energy is about. Now, those are the big hitters, but another overall theme that we have, and this doesn't happen very often, we have no retrograde planets at all January, February, until March 22nd when Mercury retrogrades. Mercury retrogrades all the time, no big deal. But, so January, February, and almost all the way into March, it is clear sailing. So, I can't remember what you said, so come back at me with some stuff, but to me it seems like even with all the other transits and things going on, we're full steam ahead for these first 3 months, 2.5, 3 months, absolutely full steam ahead. Even if you feel like you're having roadblocks, there's still some things in life that it's just like, well, we're going for this, we're passing this law, we're doing this, we're doing that, whatever it is personally and nationally, we're going for it till we hit March, and then Mercury retrogrades, which I'll add in right now. There's the theme of the retrograde of Mercury's this year. This happens regularly, but we don't usually talk about it, but Mercury retrograde in all the fire signs this year. Because typically that's just the patterns. They'll go in all the earth signs, all the fire, all the air. They just go through all of them. A little bit of Scorpio at the end in December, but other than that, all fire signs, which means we feel like we're moving at a faster speed. Whenever Mercury's in a fire sign, we communicate fast. We just want to be in a hurry, hurry, hurry. So when it retrogrades, we really do have an opportunity to reconnect with people, reconnect with the things that are important in our lives. And so that's the theme of the retrogrades of Mercury this year: March to April, July, August, and November, December. So we'll hit all of them when we get to those quarters, but that's the first piece.
What I see interesting with that is that in April, we go into that, again, it's more about everything that I have to put together for my home, my family, me
missed that
again.
one.
But it's kind of funny because you said that they pull back and then they go into that, but
Yeah.
it's all about your own growth, how you're growing,
Yeah.
how things are being established.
Okay.
But that's the first time that there actually is some kind of growth going on.
Is in April?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we've had that moving forward with all the planets that are not retrograde. I misspoke there. It isn't Mercury on the 22nd of March. It's actually Jupiter on the 8th of March. That is the first planet to go retrograde. But he's been in Scorpio all this time. He's been in Scorpio since October of 2017. But this year, while he's doing his thing, he'll go retrograde once in each zodiac sign, and we've been expanding, and when he goes retrograde, we get to see it's going to stop expanding, because you know what, when there's so much news and we're bombarded with news of sexual misconduct, FBI things, books that are tell-all, we're bombarded with it, right? So when Jupiter goes retrograde, we'll actually have an opportunity to freaking exhale for a second and start to sort out. It'll be retrograde till July. Start to sort out all of the Scorpio type things that have been exposed since October, and continue to be exposed until this retrograde hits in March.
Okay. So,
Interesting.
Yeah.
yeah. So what is April is, you already started to say,
Yeah.
Angie, was things
Well,
were,
see, April brings in that you get more active. You know, what is it that I can support? You've become self-aware of yourself. There's changes. There's improvements. You become more involved.
okay.
People will start to come more involved with a lot of things that really sometimes don't even matter to them. But they're going to sit there and say, I have to invest. I not only want to manifest dreams for myself, but I want to manifest dreams for all.
And what number is that again for April?
That's a 7 energy.
A 7?
Yeah.
How
And
does
so,
that-
of course, the other piece to that is the spirituality piece comes into it. And again, that's the unconditional loving piece of, where am I with humanity? Now, you got to remember, though, this isn't just for America. This is for our entire world.
Right.
And I'm sure that the astrology, I know there might be some fluctuations maybe with the timing or something. I'm not sure.
really.
But
No
anyway,
different than
yeah, so
it's a different day
so
here
it's
than
all,
it is in
this is
Australia.
like all around the world. So you may also see some of your nations starting to agree with each other, or some of your nations starting to draw the line at things too. That can be part of this energy.
So more coming together, and May, June.
And then as we go into May, actually May is a very tangible month. It's like it brings in a lot of, how can I say, the qualities. We start to really focus on the qualities, the positivity, the abundance. So if anything comes to a very good point right now, I want to say it's going to be in May.
Okay. So May is going to be a high month.
May is going to be a high month of
Good, we're gonna need
enjoyment,
it with the
people
astrology.
getting there together, and understanding that they have to. It's like the polarity starts to mix a little bit,
Okay. And June?
And then as we go into June, June is it's putting in your services, but also putting in your wisdom. Don't speak unless you know what you're truly speaking, because that's when the communication piece starts to really kick into it, and we're starting to get ourselves involved because we're in that master number 11. And so when the communication starts to flow, it's really going to be, you're going to hear some good communications coming out in June, which is going to end the cycle, or it's going to end something that, is very important to everyone around.
Okay.
Right? And that's going to have a lot to do with the integrity of how you speak your truth, what you do with your truth,
Okay.
okay? And it's actually going to open doors for new energy to start up again as you go into the rest of the, into the other remaining part of the year.
Okay.
So, it is. The biggest thing I'm going to say about June is that you're going to see some new seeds planted. You're going to see if there's something that isn't really functioning properly, it's going to start getting dissolved or taken care of.
What's the astrology look like there?
It's a wee bit,
April,
it's a
May,
wee
June.
bit different. Yeah, it's a wee bit different. So Saturn, as far as April goes, Mercury stations to go direct in April. So whenever the planets stop to move direction is when we feel the most frustration or the least amount of movement. So we could feel a little stress then. Saturn retrogrades on April 17th to September 6th. And so, again, Saturn, like I've already mentioned, is about building the strength, that foundation. When it retrogrades, we have an opportunity to see where it didn't work, the little seeds that we've planted, where it's worked, what isn't, what's worth my time. I'll work for that, work towards that. So that's what that retrograde is. And again, I'll use some of your keywords. It's authenticity and working with integrity. Saturn does not, it does not tolerate false anything. It will expose that immediately. Pluto will also retrograde, and again, retrogrades are normal, and that retrogrades April 22nd. So we actually have 3 different stations during April, whether one's retrograde to direct to retrograde, and so basically it just means that April could be a month where we're not having as much movement as we feel like we need to. And what was April for you again? A 7, right? So that was about, it was the 7, I remember.
Yeah, it's going into improvements.
Improvements.
Yeah.
So when we stop, we may feel frustrated at first, but we have an opportunity to make improvements by seeing perfect. Yeah. That's why we
But
go
not
back and
only
forth
seeing
from
our
month to
own,
month.
but to see.
Right, that's
the
exactly
vast.
it, because these are outer planets. These really aren't personal.
Yeah.
They aren't personal,
No.
right?
So, yeah. So in April, she had people actually coming together to try to solve the problems that came into
Yes.
into view
Awareness.
in March.
Yep.
So,
Good. And then we have May. What we have May is transiting Uranus is entering the sign of Taurus. This only happens every 7 or 8 years when he moves into a new zodiac sign, so this is significant.
Yes.
Throughout 2018, Uranus will be, he's in Aries, moves into Taurus, retrogrades back into Aries, moves into Taurus again in 2019. This is where what we value is going through a shift. Uranus is all about all Aquarian energy, like we said, the humanitarian things. Taurus is very earthy, very grounded. What do I value? We'll go through the next 7 to 8 years a big shift in the money market, our physical resources, global resources, the resources we get from the earth. All of these things will be going through a big change. And this is just the beginning of it. Because again, when they move slow and take a long time, we don't always see the effects right away. But the last time I heard that when Uranus entered the sign of Aries, big earthquake, I think it was in Japan, tsunami, happened on that day. So on May 15th, there is the potential when Uranus does move and hits angles, we do have potentials for earth things to happen. So earthquakes or big things such as well, really earthquakes. We also have a new moon on that day, the same day that Uranus moves into Taurus. And so that triggers an eclipse we had from August 21st. So we know May 15th, it's in Taurus time of year, there's a big shift. It's a big shift, but it's a hard shift because Taurus, Taurus, they can be stubborn, but they can be dependable. But when there's a shift, it's really difficult. It's a difficult move.
Is it a time when people's loyalties might get shaken up?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because Taurus is, if it isn't anything, it's loyal. I mean, some people say stubborn, but it's loyal. That's a light way to put it, a way to shine light on something that feels tough sometimes, but very much loyal, very much loyal. And then
For the first 9 times.
right.
The 10th time, they'll never speak to you again.
That's
You'll be dead.
right. That's true. That's
Yep.
how long it takes. I have Taurus rising. I'm a little slow sometimes, but hey,
When
whatever.
did you say there was, I want to check with you what you said there would be some weather issues, and what was that?
May
that you-
15th?
May 15th.
May?
Yeah, in May. Well, there's always weather issues, but
Yeah.
just the sun and the sun and Saturn in Capricorn at the winter solstice created extreme cold weather in New England. Well, actually, the whole country, and which is expected because Capricorn is
Yeah.
cold and dry. And while that's winter, but this was extreme because Saturn has not been in Capricorn for 30 years, so it created an extreme case of weather, which we expected in the weather astrologers. What month am I on now? We did May.
You're into June.
Into June. Mars retrogrades, Neptune retrogrades, and Mars retrogrades in June. So there's a lot to say about that, the Mars retrograde, because that only retrogrades once every 2 years. So it is retrograde in Aquarius, which is at the same area of the eclipse we're having on January 31st. These eclipse points are being triggered, and Mars is retrograding in Aquarius, backing into Capricorn. This is significant. Mars's movement and action and how we want to move forward. And when it's retrograde, we have to go within. And if we're feeling too much movement and if groups are getting too out of hand, governments can try and put a kibosh on that, suppress that. Thank you, that's the right word. Try and suppress these things, but we'll still be fighting through it. There's a lot to say about Mars retrograde. So we'll talk about it when we get into our monthly forecasts.
And that comes in with June?
And that comes in, that's June 26th to August 27th. So
And Mars is retrograding in what sign?
it will be in Aquarius, back to Capricorn, and then it'll go forward again into Aquarius. So
And so it's going to make us go back and re-examine some structures that maybe are not as
Exactly.
strong as we think.
that's right. But the Aquarius thing, when it stations, when any planet stops before it moves one direction or the other, It's just an apparent motion. It's not real. They don't really go backwards. That point is what's really significant about the retrogrades. It's because it's the moment we stopped the car and we have to look behind us, put it in gear, and back up, or stop and move forward. It's a moment, and it's a stop. It's a moment in time, and that's exactly the same as the eclipse that we're having on the 31st of January. So that is significant. So we're going to see a hint of it, even though it's not till June. We're going to see a hint of what's going on that January 31st eclipse. And if we don't see anything significant about it, when Mars hits that point and stops, and it stays at that degree for a few days in June 26th, we'll see the results of that eclipse. Because right after that, we have more eclipses, and we'll get into that in the next show.
Interesting.
Okay, so we are going to wrap up the first 6 months. And when we come back in part 2 of this show, I'm going to ask both of the ladies to give a 1.5 to 2 minute summary of their first 6 months. What do they want to tell people to be aware of, to work on, and to do? And that will start part 2 of 2018, Astrology, Numerology, and the Web of Light. Namaste.